So now we're in Ohio and we're gonna talk about the deer we called Roman. Roman was a buck that I had actually had a little history with on this farm. I just didn't see him becoming a deer that ever would have been much of anything. Well, then last year in 21, I was running cameras on this farm, and all of a sudden, early October, there's Roman. And man, I was surprised at what he looked like. Still had the same short G2s, but giant 3s, super mass, and a big frame. I mean, he was just an impressive deer. I was blown away at what he had turned into. And so instantly he caught my attention, and I'm like, this deer is gonna deserve some attention. And the reason I called him Roman was because of these giant G3s. And he looked to me like he had a Roman fighter's helmet on. Whenever he would turn sideways for some reason, I would just always think of that. So this farm that Roman lives on is a vast piece of timber. It's 276 acre farm. It's got about 42 acres of tillable ground on it that's in hay, but it has a vast amount of deep ravines, ridges, points, and timber. These deer can be anywhere on it, and I'm real big about not penetrating the farm too much, especially at certain times. But I knew that I was gonna have to penetrate this farm a little deeper to be able to get on Roman. So as I'm hunting Roman, I'm starting to figure out, I kind of can tell where he's at. I've seen him a few times at a distance, but I'm really narrowing down where I need to be. So I move a tree stand in on this bench in the timber, a bunch of white oak, soft maple and stuff around, and a lot of deer filter through this bench area, and then they work themselves out to the hayfield. I've got a sighting of Roman there. I know I'm in his roundhouse. I just need the right wind and the right kind of day to go hunt this deer. As I'm slipping into my stand, it's kind of, the ground's wet, it had rained just a little bit, it was really quiet. As I get into my stand, I look down to my left and there's a doe, 40 yards, and I was like, whoa. But I know I need to get my bow up in the tree for sure, and somehow, I don't know how I never saw it, all of a sudden I catch antlers moving to the right of her about 12 yards, and there's Roman. He's right there. At this moment, I'm freaking out. I gotta figure something out. So I start grunting at him with the extinguisher. He hears it, but he's not like reacting. And as I've done so many times before, I changed his mind. I took the black rack, raking those antlers against the other antler as much as I can to make the noise. He turned and he started coming up, but he started veering around and he was gonna try to get the wind to his best advantage. And he was coming in hot. And Roman comes in at 25, I got it pegged at 30. And I shoot right over his back. I was upset at the whole situation. It was cool to see him, know I was in the right spot, and at that point I just tried to regather my composure, and I really didn't think he even knew what happened. He went off down the hill. Now's your chance to just leave for the night, and we'll come up with a different game plan. So now after missing Roman, I still felt like I could see him in that spot. I had a camera in that area and I still got his picture moving through there. I knew at that point then that he wasn't like, I'm being hunted, I need to leave this farm for good. So I was gonna put the full court press on some more. And I had a food plot a little farther back, and I had a redneck ghillie blind set up there, and I had a clover plot in the front. I noticed on my cameras that he was going to that plot. He was starting to push does on that plot. So it was starting to give me confidence that I can still get on this deer, and I need to get after it. October 23rd was coming. It was a red moon phase. I've killed some really big deer on October 23rd in the past. It'd be awesome to kill him on that same date.
I just got in the blind here. I'm after a deer I call Roman. In the evenings he gets out of bed, walks up the hill from the bedding area, hits this plot looking around for does, eats a little bit, then he heads back into the timber, works his way back to the front of the farm, works scrapes, chases does all night, whatever. So he should be out here tonight.
Where I position these plots is where deer like to step out. It's in a spot where the deer want to be naturally, so it's just a little staging spot for them to feed in that clover before they move on to the rest of the field or move on to a patch of acorns or whatever. But deer are social animals, so these little green clover plots that are half acre or less are perfect little spots to catch that kind of social activity with deer, and it's a great spot to put an arrow in because they're not going to be on there all night till dark. They're going to move on, but they're going to stage there just enough time for you to get a shot. Once I get settled in the blind, I'll actually grab the black rack and I'll tickle them together. Because if you think about it, when deer are comfortable, a lot of times, usually the little bucks and does are the first ones to move in the evenings onto these plots. They come up into the plots, feed a little bit. The little bucks are having social time, bumping antlers. They're feeling each other out, just being little young bucks. So as I'm sitting there, you know, the wind is horrible for me. It's not completely horrible for the front of the plot, but where I actually felt like him and some adult does could come could be really bad. But I had to take my chances because we were planning to leave for Illinois in 2 days. So I was lathered up with the phase system like I always do. And I literally, I'm not kidding you when I say this, I literally had 5 to 6 does walk completely downwind of me right in front of my blind at 15 to 20 yards into the plot, coming from the wrong direction. And I'll tell you, that gave me some serious confidence because I really felt that that could be where Roman would come from. And sure enough, I'm sitting there and I look to my left and there's Roman. He's walking into the plot. He has no care in the world. He sees all the other deer and he's feeding, and he's gonna walk right through my window at about 18, 20 yards, and I'm trying to get the camera situated where I can get a shot, but he just never stops. He just keeps on a steady walk, and I didn't want to rush it. I didn't want to take a shot. I'm not gonna lie, this deer kind of has me a little frazzled. I've missed him once. I've been hunting him for about 2 weeks pretty hard, and I'm trying to calm myself down and just play it smart, let him get out there. And I'm like, you know, he's just gonna go out into the field. These does are all around here. He's not gonna leave them. He pushes some does off, just like I said. This is why he's here. He's not really here to eat. He's eating, but he's more here to show his dominance, look for these does a little bit, maybe run some bucks off, whatever he wants to do. He's being the man. He stops, he's lip curling, he's trying to smell if any of these does are possibly ready. I was like, eventually he's gonna come back and bump these does that are close to me. And that's what he did. He just turned, big old buck that he is, and he started bumping the young does, and he pushed one right out in front of me. And sure enough, here he comes broadside, 18 yards. I'm at full draw, feel like the camera's right. And I make a bad shot, back and low.
I did not make a good shot on that deer at all. I've been watching him the whole time. I wasn't worried about filming. I filmed him out there a little bit, and then I was watching him with the binoculars. This is the part of bow hunting that can just really depress a person. Man, I'm not used to making shots like that on a deer, and this deer has just got me frazzled. I missed him the other day. Then I just do this to him. I mean, to say that I'm upset is an understatement. I just had to take a minute and just gather myself up. And now it's raining.
So the next day it starts to rain a little bit in the morning. It's about 11:30. I've given him a lot of time. I know the deer's dead in my heart just by watching the footage so many times and seeing that hole. I was like, there's no way he can survive that. One way or the other, he's gonna die. But sometimes on those shots, they can live 24 hours. Sometimes they can die within an hour. It just depends. And so I was just gonna take my time, go super slow. I was by myself, be super stealthy, and do the best I can to find any kind of sign I can of Roman, whether it be hair, blood, or just seeing him laying there.
Another big rub down there. There's kind of a trail right here. The last little bit of blood I found was just right there.
After about 45 minutes of literally creeping with really little to no blood, I just was finding specks here and there. I stopped, sat down on a stump, kind of said a small prayer that God would help me find this deer. You know, I felt bad that I made a horrible shot. That's the worst shot I've made on a deer in years. You know, I was just like feeling bad, but yet I was like, you know, Lord, can you just help me find this deer? And I stood up and I walked 5 yards, and there he was at 35 yards laying dead.
I don't believe it. I found him. It's right there. Holy smokes. He just laid right there by that stump up against that tree and just died. Oh my goodness. What a stud. Roman, you are a great deer. Oh my gosh. What a great buck. I was deflated thinking that I wouldn't maybe not find this deer with the hit I made, but wow. He's a great deer. Good way to start off whitetail edge for the year. Now I got to get him out of here.
It was just the end to a kind of a roller coaster of emotions, and I was just thankful that I was able to find him. So some keys to this hunt that I think made it successful for me was kind of knowing how the deer use the farm in general. 2, narrowing it down by hunting to figure out exactly where Roman was. Getting aggressive with the tree stands and moving, I slowly got to the point where I actually laid eyes on him. And then I knew that I was getting closer to his roundhouse. 3rd, after I missed him, I didn't let that blow everything, but the wind was better for the blind than it was the stand, so I chose the blind. The other was when I rattled when I got into the blind, and I rattled that black rack together a little bit like young bucks tickling their antlers. That calmed all those deer down and they came right back up into the plot. Another key to the hunt was being scentless. Having those does coming in downwind. You know, Roman only came out 10, 15 minutes later after they did. He was probably just down the hill eating acorns, chewing his cud. If he would have felt completely like something was wrong, he never would have showed up. Now again, this is a secluded farm. I don't pressure these deer a lot. They know where they're safe. But if you teach these deer what areas of your farm that they can feel safe all the time, it will definitely help increase your odds of daylight movement.